What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Malik here, and welcome back to Contesting the Point. Now, it's been a hot minute since we've gotten to talk some CDL, and I'm sure you guys understand why. I hope everyone is staying healthy, staying safe, and staying as positive as they can during these times. Obviously, we're not in the studio anymore, and with most states instituting shelter in place, we have taken CTP online. Joining me for the first time this season, we got Benson and Momo in the building. How you guys holding up?
I'm doing well. Quarantine is taking its toll. My hair is longer than it's ever been.
Right?
Either
Can't
way,
find a barber in these times.
Either way, right, it's tough. I'm super excited to be here on the show for the very first time this season. It sucks I can't beat Phil face to face, but hey, I'll settle for online this time.
Yeah, for myself, repeating what Ben said, however, Ben is much more competitive than I am. You know, I'm here for a great discussion, hot topics, but I will take great pleasure in taking that gold Astro later when I beat Ben, and beating Ben is better than winning itself.
Bill, again, I just want you guys to know, you couldn't see right there, but I actually picked up the trophy from last season and held it right next to me because the reigning champ is back.
Oh, flexing the old trophy. I love it.
Like I said, Ben is much more competitive than I am.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I'm just happy to talk some Call of Duty. I'm happy to be back at it.
True.
Well, even though we're stuck at home, the rules still stay the same. We'll take a look at a story from the CDL. I'll give a hot take on the story. Then it's up to our guests to attack or defend my position. I'll award points for the convincing arguments. And after 3 stories, the guest with the most points gets 60 seconds to pop off on the illustrious Astro Golden Headset in the Astro Listen Up moment. That sound good to you guys?
Sounds great.
Sounds good to me.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and hop straight into our first story. With all the ugly going on in the world right now, one beautiful thing is that gaming is very flexible. The global pandemic of COVID-19 has shut down big gatherings of people, so the Call of Duty League has moved to online play. This is a huge change that will certainly have an impact on player performance. So my take on this is that moving to this online format will level the playing field. Benson, since you're so aggressive and so competitive, I'm going to let you attack on this first topic.
Okay. So for me, no is the answer. And here's why. Historically in Call of Duty, people have complained about online format going towards pro points, going towards seeding, whereas in reality, it's always been pretty much spot on. The team at number 1 has historically gone out and been the best team in the game. People have often used online as a reason to complain, whereas in reality, not much changes. The teams that we see right now at the top, our big 4, if you will still be at the top. I don't think any of the teams at the bottom are even remotely going to be close. Maybe we see some shock results come through, but you get those same shock results at LAN anyway. That's what we love about Call of Duty, is the upsets every single event that we go to. You never know. Call of Duty can be a very on-the-day sort of game. In reality, when you talk big picture, when you talk an entire season, I think the Big 4 will stay the Big 4, and it's going to be business as usual.
Okay. That's a couple points. I do think that is very, very interesting that you pointed out that, you know, these teams, basically the online's not going to affect them, and that their environment and them not being in the crowd is just not going to play a role at all, because I kind of feel like feeling that energy, man, is a big thing. Momo, what do you have to say about that?
I mean, I want to kind of start from what you were saying there, the crowd. I think one thing that we see a lot is what we say, the quote-unquote sixth man. When we see the Huntsman play, or when we see these big fan favorites play, they get on some kind of momentum. They will kind of go off on one, and that crowd pumps them up as well as drags the opponents down, I feel. So I think that aspect is taken out. These guys are going to be playing from home. They're going to be playing from their own setups. This is where they're comfortable, and some of these people that feel that pressure may be able to play a little bit better because of their environment, shall we say. And I do think as well, these guys, they practice online 24/7. Maybe for some of them as well, this practice becomes better because they know that this practice is a lot closer to what the actual game is going to be. It's every scrim now, every game, every exhibition match that these guys are playing, that's going to be the exact same as a CDL matchup, and they have to take that as seriously. So to go back to the question of will it level the playing field, I actually think that those top teams won't have that six man. They won't have that hype, that energy of the crowd, and I think the lesser teams may be able to just kind of play in their own comfort zone and maybe play a little bit of catch up. I think we will see more shock results online as well. So I actually think that I'm going to defend that and say that the level of the playing field will kind of go go that way too.
Phil, let me ask you this. Sixth man, right? You talked a lot about the sixth man being the crowd. Just out of curiosity, which teams have, in your opinion, the most important sixth man?
I think easy answer is Huntsman. When we went to Minnesota, the Rocker were going wild. Wherever it is, the homestand, that's where that sixth man would have played a part. And I think now, say we go to what is coming up, would be the Dallas one. We aren't going to have that kind of crazy crowd around Dallas. We always will have the crazy crowd around Huntsman. Everyone
Here's the thing. The Huntsman players have had that for so long. That no longer affects them. I don't think they need the crowd to perform at a high level. I think they're ready to go every single event. For them, you look at players like Scump, for example, who've been playing for a decade. Phil, Scump and you competed against each other at one time. That was when there was no crowd. Scump's played with it all. He's played with crowd. He's played online. He's played in his parents' house. He's played in his own house. He's played at LAN. He's played on the biggest stages in the world. He doesn't need a sixth man. That's not going to help a team like Huntsman. For me, they're already A-OK. Their gameplay is going to transfer across, crowd or not. I don't really think that the sixth man is going to be a massive effect. Maybe for Minnesota Rocker, I'll give you that. Those players not necessarily used to having big fan support in their careers. They get it this year, which is great. Right. Shout out to Minnesota Rocker for doing everything fantastic.
Good point.
But even so, they're so good anyway, right? Now you're just saying, hey, play the comfort of your own home. Kick back, relax, get your mom to make you some lunch, you'll be fine. You get to play with your feet up. If anything, for me, it's going to make the better players who historically have played in online leagues, by the way. You look at players like Crimsix, like Clayster, like Scump. They've all got this check mark next to played in an online league, and the results back then were the same as I expect them to be. The best teams won. Simple as.
All right, I like that. Phil, do you have any other counter to what he just said?
I think he does make some valid points, but I still stand by the fact that in every post-game interview, these guys, and I know they kind of have to do it, but they will always thank the crowd, and they will always say that we hear you, the crowd going wild. We hear it when I'm on a 3-piece or I'm on a 4th streak. It will make him go for that 5th, make him play, that extra bit aggressive. I do still think that crowd plays a part, but also not only for the good side, when you're playing against the Huntsman or against that kind of crazy fan base, you feel that. You die and your hands start to shake. You might sweat a bit more. You're not going to have that pressure. So I think there is definitely some counter towards that. But, if I'm a Huntsman player, I would much rather be playing on LAN, put it that way.
Okay. I do think that there's something to be said about the comfortability of playing online, given that a lot of players scrim online, and that's just that's the way that people are used to practicing the game in general. And I do think there's something to be said about taking the crowd element out of it. But I have to give this one to Benson, because I am convinced that these teams that have been practicing and have been doing very well in that online setting, they transferred all that very well to the stage. And I don't think we'll see much of a change going into this online format. I think it's going to make the strongest teamers even stronger. So with that, Benson, you take this round 6 points to 4 points.
Come on, Phil.
Okay. Plenty of time. Plenty of time.
That was too easy.
Give me some more questions. I need. We talk about competitive. Let's go. Let's do this.
There we go. Now we've routed the cage of Phil.
You fired me up. You brought me into me versus Scump back in the day, Ben. You made it personal.
Moving on to our next story. The return of the CDL is this weekend. And for those of you who need a refresher, Dallas won the last event here in LA and are looking super strong. Now, the teams playing this weekend are Dallas, Chicago, Toronto, Seattle, Paris, Minnesota, the LA Gorillas, and Florida. There are definitely some other strong teams that can take this weekend, like Chicago and Minnesota. But my hot take for this is that Dallas will win this weekend and take back-to-back events. Momo, since you didn't get to attack on this last one and the competitive fire has been ignited inside you, I'm going to let you attack this time. What do you think, man?
I think it's a great point that you make. I think first and foremost, it has been a while. We've seen these teams have a long period of time between then and now. I actually think, personally, Chicago is the biggest threat for them, and I think that goes without saying going into this group. I think they're still the better team, in my opinion, as well. I think if they make the finals, which they should, of course, we didn't see that happen in Atlanta, but if they make the finals, I think they can get that one over on Dallas again. And we saw it, the way that Formal loves to play against Crim, the way that Scump loves to play against Crim, even though I'm sure he'd much rather do it on LAN face-to-face, I do feel that Chicago are the better team. Plus,
good point.
You're forgetting about maybe the other teams as well. Florida made a final. I know there's some roster changes, but you can't rule them out. Minnesota, for me, I almost feel like this is their time. They've been so good on LAN. They've been consistent. We put them in our top 4. This, I feel, is where they can really kind of prove themselves. And I think if they were to go on and win it, they're the one team that people may not question as much. So again, look out for Minnesota. It's not all Chicago. It's not all Dallas. But I still think Chicago are the better team. I've got them taking this one.
Okay. Yeah, and a lot of people keep forgetting that Minnesota, they are the only team to beat FaZe. They beat Atlanta last week, or the last event, and so in LA. So I don't understand where the underestimation comes from for that team. But moving on to you, Benson, how are you going to defend this, man? What do you think?
So going in, I'm going to start with out of the top 4, the big 4 as I call them. There's only 3 teams there. Obviously, you mentioned Minnesota Rocker. Phil, I think that was a fantastic point you made. Maybe this is going to be their weekend. However, what you have failed to realize is what is in Dallas. Well, for those of you that live there, Google Fiber is in Dallas, and all of Dallas players are in Dallas as well. It's only going to make them stronger. And the big argument for me was last event in LA. Do you remember what everyone thought the final was going to be? Everyone was so excited. Dallas, Chicago, it's going to be incredible. Well, guess what? Chicago didn't even get to the final there. Now you're going to try and tell me that Dallas isn't the #1 team and they shouldn't be defending their own weekend? Absolutely not. That's blasphemy.
They don't have the home crowd anymore. This is online.
The Dallas players, if anything, I think Dallas would play better without a crowd. You look at how, for example, in London, Dallas reacted to a crowd. It doesn't really affect them in a positive way. Clay, obviously, yes, you can argue, loves a good crowd, but he's a veteran, man. He doesn't need it. And now you're saying he has to defend his own weekend? Bruh, Clay's fire has been ignited, bro. He's a world champion from last year. People kind of wrote him off, this old dog, bro. No, it's time for him to retire. Hey, Clay, you want to be on the analyst desk? Hell no, said Clay. He's ready to play, man. And let me tell you, the only team that could really cause a ruckus for me, or I should say teams, is the other two. It's Chicago and Minnesota. But for me, how can we not say the team that just won the last event is still #1? How can we not give them that right?
Yeah, that's a good point, but I do think with Shotzi waking up in that last event, it's only making Dallas look that much stronger. I don't know, Phil, what do you have to say? You have any more you want to add?
I respect the points that Ben's making. I think the players individually, people will call out as well. The likes of Shotzi and Illy, they're back online. They're going to be better than ever, and I do agree.
Illy's incredible.
Which is a scary thing if you're a Huntsman fan or you're a Minnesota, Florida fan, for example. But I believe that Chicago and the veterancy within that squad and the players that they have, I think that LA and that hiccup of not making that finals will be still haunting them. I think that's something that they're almost hungry to get back into because they were almost forgotten about, brushed to the side. They weren't part of the limelight. And I think for these guys, it's to get back on track. It's their first online. It's almost like a huge reset once again. We were so excited at the start of the season going, CDL, who's going to win the first event? And we're almost restarting that. It's like, who's going to win the first online event? And I think Huntsman will want to come out, prove a point that, A, it's the Dallas one, technically. And if they can do it against Dallas, it's just one more thing over the likes of Crim and Clay that the likes of Formal and Scum will have. So a huge rivalry. For me, all I want to see is that final, to be honest.
I'm with you. Phil, I want to throw a little bit of a monkey wrench your way. What about Paris? This is a team we haven't really seen play in a while. Is there any upset potential for a team like that?
Paris are a team which I felt that on LAN, they felt that energy. They were right there with each other, and that's not just the players, it was the coaches, it was everyone kind of involved with Paris. And I feel that them playing online isn't going to help them. I actually look at that team, and I think that they are maybe a team that may not be as good online. And I don't know whether that's chemistry-based, I don't know if that's because they just play better together in person, but that's just the gut feeling I have. Now, I could be wrong, absolutely. They might be even better, online, who knows? But I just think that Paris were a team that got momentum and got it kind of rolling on LAN, and I don't know whether they'll be that same team. I don't see them as a huge threat going into this event.
Right, and Benson, of course, you're on the other side of this whole argument, but is there any of these other teams that you can see possibly posing a threat to Dallas?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Outside of the other two that I mentioned before, your Chicago, your Minnesota, there's no one. The one thing I will say is it's unfortunate we have to move to an online format because the CDL was just getting going, right? We really started to have a good vision of like where our team started to rank up, and that was fantastic. And the one thing that we learned, admittedly, in as few events as we had, was the skill gap between the top 4 teams is massive. Malik, you mentioned it yourself. Minnesota Rock beat Atlanta FaZe, okay? This is a team that can play. People still, for some reason, are saying it's the big 3. It's the big 3. It's not. It's the big 4. Minnesota are in that group. They can compete against the big boys. And for me, it's these weekends where we're going to have, 3+ of the top 4. That's when you could see potential upsets happen. And I think kind of point in case was what happened in LA, right? Again, we expected the same final. We expected it to be Dallas, Chicago, and we didn't get it. We didn't. And for me, that's right. so upsetting. So again, I think you have to give props to the team that won the last event. Credit where credit is due. If you were number 1 last week, I still think you deserve to go in as, quote, the number 1 seed, especially when it's your city's weekend.
Right. And Momo, I think you made great points. I think, Phil, you've got me somewhat convinced that Minnesota can sneak up and just completely wipe out Dallas in this tournament. But I have to say, seeing Shotzi and Illy step up the way they did in that last event, it makes it really hard for me to bet against the Dallas Empire.
They're gonna be
so
better
with that,
online.
I'm going to go with Benson to win this one again. Benson sitting with 7 points this round. Momo,
okay.
You're going to get 6 this round, and that puts our score at 13-10.
You're better than this, Phil.
I am better than this.
Did you wake up this morning knowing you were going to get steamrolled? Come on, Phil. Put up a better fight.
It's actually not that.
Listen,
still
2
pretty
points.
close.
Very close.
There's one more. I got
Phil
you,
made
Ben.
some fantastic points. He made some fantastic points.
I'm ready.
I agree with a few of them.
All right, guys, the home stretch. The last story we're going to cover deals with the Florida Mutineers and Prestinni. There's some shocking news. Prestinni posted on Reddit saying that he's benched. Of course, without him, this means that Pharaoh is set to take his place in this weekend's games. My hot take is that the Florida Mutineers are actually better off with a hungry Pharaoh than they would be with an unmotivated Prestinni. Benson, I'm going to let you attack this one. What you got to say about that?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. We're talking about a world champ. All right, we're talking about Prestinni, okay? We're talking about a Florida team that when he was playing with them, if you remember the result they got against Chicago, oh my God, talk about a pop-off from Prestinni. Now, first of all, if you want to be nitpicky, and I'm sure many people do, let's compare the 2 players toe-to-toe. One, a very, very fast, aggressive player in Prestinni who's always going to be in the action. Now, his numbers may not always be that of positive KD, but he doesn't care about that. He's fighting for as many interactions as possible, putting as much pressure on the map as possible. Are you going to get that from Pharaoh? No. So that's an instant change of playstyle that Florida will need to adapt to. Now, yes, they've had a couple of weeks, sure. Admittedly, maybe they've made those adjustments. Will those adjustments be as good as playing with a world champ that's Prestinni? Absolutely not. And here's the kicker, right? We talk about Prestinni being maybe a little unmotivated. He isn't feeling at his best. That's not something that just happens overnight, okay? That's something that has been kind of deep-rooted for quite some time, which means he's felt that way for quite some time, which means he's played with those feelings for quite some time, and they were able to beat Chicago whilst he felt like that. You're telling me Pharaoh is going to be better on this team than Prestinni? No chance. Absolutely not.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds kind of nuts dropping a championship caliber player and just kind of writing him off saying that your team would be better off. I think that's kind of a nuts assumption to make. But, Phil, you got to defend that, man. Is this the right call for the Florida Mutineers to be making? What do you think?
I will defend this. And I think Prestinni, yes. Ben made some great points. That is something that doesn't happen overnight. We obviously hope Prestinni is okay and he'll be back better than ever. Yes, he's a world champion. But he's got teammates. These teammates, want a motivated player. They want a hungry player. They want someone that can bring something new to the table. And yes, Ben said they needed a change of that they will have to take a change of pace. I actually think Florida needed that. I'm looking at Florida and I'm thinking, yes, for these guys to win, they need to change something. Was it Prestinni? Potentially, but as well, you look at Pharaoh individually, not the greatest stats, but who did he have to play up against? FaZe, Dallas in LA. It was a very, very tough debut. The guy said in an interview that he's scrimmed maybe once before this, and we've been waiting. I've been itching to see Pharaoh back in this league as well, in a team, just to showcase how good he is at Search and Destroy and the other game modes as well. But I think Pharaoh individually as well, he can make other players around him better. And I'm thinking right now, this isn't really a topic of Prestinni. I'm thinking a team is made up of 5 people. Losing 1 and making 4 in a much better position with someone else makes a well-rounded team, makes a team that wants to play, wants to win. And again, I feel like it's not a Prestinni Pharaoh thing. I think it's an old Florida versus a new Florida. I think this new Florida can flourish. It can get better and potentially go on and even take a homestand.
Hey, Phil. Just
Ben,
curious.
don't do it to me. Ben, don't do it to me. Ben, you're
curious.
already 3 points off.
Just curious, Phil. Who's going to be the leader here on New Florida?
What a great team does is they lead together. As a squad.
as a team. As a unit, right?
Much like Paris and
Okay,
Toronto.
Okay, so that's a question to be asked. What players on the Florida Mutineers would benefit from having Pharaoh in the lineup as opposed to Prestinni?
None of them. Absolutely none of them, Malik. They needed veteran leadership, a player who can win. That's what that team needs, a player that knows how to win. How many times have you seen teams kind of stuck in a second place slump? And then all of a sudden that mentality gets to them, right? Are we ever going to win? Can I, as a player, win? Prestinni propels you past that hurdle. I'm a world champ.
I'm not sure Prestinni is that person. I think Prestinni became a world champ because he had the likes of Clayster, and he had that leadership. I don't think just by winning a ring you become a leader. I don't think by winning a world championship you then become like
that's a fair point.
This spoken person for a squad.
That's a fair point. But you as a competitor, and I can use your playing career as a prime example here, Phil. When you first started playing and you teamed with someone who was a leader, someone who you listen to, what happens? You learn. You learn from the best. And you yourself did that in your own playing career, which meant when you started playing with some of the younger talent, when you started playing with the Mad Cats, for example, you were able to lead those players to greater success. That, your entire career basically is a perfect example
he's using backhanded compliments
of what is happening here at Florida. Yes, he might not have been a perfect leader, and hell, he might not even still be a perfect leader, but he is more of a leader than the rest of that team, and he has more experience about winning and more experience just in general to help that team improve. Pharaoh doesn't have that.
So, and I agree with a lot of the points there, but if you've got current Prestinni feeling how he is, who is benching himself,
felt like that for
is
months.
He going to be that leader? Does a leader bench themselves before LA?
They beat Chicago. They beat Huntsman with him feeling that way.
Like so if your leader benches himself, do you want to?
Out the window.
I don't want someone who doesn't want to play.
I want someone that's going to get me results. That's going to get me points. I'm trying to get to playoffs. That's all I, as a management, would really care about. Yes, of course, you care about your players' feelings, absolutely. Yeah. But at the end of the day, you're playing for results, right? And Prestinni was bringing you results. How many people at the start of the year would have said Florida will beat Chicago Huntsmen?
Not a lot.
I definitely wouldn't. I definitely wouldn't. I don't think many people, the hardcore Floridians probably would.
Maybe a couple people in Miami.
Yeah, and that's about it. No one had that result ever happening. And you saw the toll it took on Prestinni. When Prestinni and Arcees did that interview together, you saw that toll. Whatever that is, that doesn't happen overnight. To my initial point, he's felt that way for some time, and Florida were playing great. Yes, it will have a negative effect on his teammates, which I think is what's happened. And I think that's what's propelled management to make this decision. But when you're comparing two players toe-to-toe, when the question is, will Florida Mutineers be better now? The answer is no. Will they be better in 6 months? I think personally, the answer is still no.
Ooh, okay. All right. Well, I feel like even with the compliments he threw in there, and like there was just so much on that attack. Benson, that was quite a flurry there. And with that being said, I have to give you this round, man. That's 3 in a row for Benson. I think that's our first clean sweep that we've had on the show this season. I just don't see them being better without Prestinni in the lineup. It's kind of hard to convince me otherwise. I think you did a good job, Momo, but you look at all the results across the season. You look at all the results that they had, all their best results. They had Prestinni there in the lineup. We haven't really seen them out there without them, so it's kind of hard to argue against it right now. Prestinni is a former champion, so you can't count the guy out. You can't count out championship experience. You just can't. With that being said, the round is over. Benson has 10 points, and Momo is sitting at 7, which means our grand total. Benson with 23 points, Momo with 17, making Benson our winner. You get 60 seconds to pop off.
Thank you so much, Malik. God, it feels good to be back on top once again. What do I want to say in my 60 seconds? Well, first of all, Phil, step things up. Wasn't good enough from you today, but that's not the main focus I want to go at. I want to go at coronavirus and everyone that's not following the rules. Guys, trust me, I want the Call of Duty League back as much as everyone else, but more importantly, I want everyone to try and stay healthy, everyone that's a part of our esport community, and just everyone in general to be as healthy as possible. So abide by the rules, guys. Quarantine. I've seen far too many videos on the internet of people going around, not listening, not staying, 6 feet apart from each other, no social distancing, and those people are stupid. But yeah, that was basically the rant I want to go on. Screw those guys. Guys, stay healthy, though. Please wash your hands. Don't touch your face. And I'll probably enjoy my next 60 seconds when I win next week.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that does it for this episode of Contesting the Point. Thanks once again to Momo and Benson for contesting the point and arguing all of those crazy hot takes that I had. And guys, the CDL is back. We have matches going down Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern. Make sure you tune into that, and we'll be back next week. But until then, see you soon.